This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's going to be a good one, everyone. I want to thank you. I'm getting Apple 5-star reviews like crazy, and I truly appreciate it, you guys. They're racking up. We're getting close to 1,000. I'd love to see the 1K. So if you could, if you can, if you don't mind, if you love the show, do that. If you really love the show, hit me up on Patreon. The link's in the show notes. There's 2 levels, patrolman, sergeant. They offer like just little different extras, direct access to me through messaging. It's got a little feed like Facebook on there. We got a bunch of people there now. It's really great. It's really a great way to support the show. Like I've said before, there's possibly some sponsors come on, which would be great, but it would be even greater just to be only accountable to you, the listener. That would be like my dream. So if you love the show and you want to show it monetarily, do it through Patreon, please, and thank you. Today's show, we have a friend of the show, a return guest. He was on back in 2019 in November. Believe it or not, that's when I came back to the podcast and I decided to really be serious about it. And he came on the show. He was NYPD for 5 years now. He's in Nassau County Police Department in Long Island. I think that's how you say it. I love the Long Island accent. It reminds me of the Boston accent. It's like a tough guy accent. I love it. My family lives around Boston, talk like that, kind of. So I like hearing him talk. His name is Daneil Jurowitsch. He also owns Bump It Marketing and Print Scan Fingerprinting Services. He's got a hell of a side hustle going on. He recently was promoted, and I thought it'd be fun to have him back on and give us some updated stories and maybe some encouragement for coppers out there that, not unlike me, who are trying to do a side hustle, make some extra income that's not necessarily police-related. So without further ado, let me bring on Daneil Jurowitsch. Sir, thank you for coming on again.
Steve. My pleasure. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
Dude, yeah, it has. But we've kept in touch a little bit since
100%. Yeah.
Since we talked. I mean, even when we talked the first time, you had the side hustle going and no kids. Now, 2 kids. I like it. It's awesome, man.
Yep, it's a lot.
yeah. I know, man. I mean, you're working full-time as a copper and in a busy area. I mean, Long Island is that a good one? Is that close?
It's good.
You're mocking me. Shut up. It's your county. I was looking at it, is like 1.4 million people. So this is not like you were a New York City cop. It's not like you went to some place that was like a slowdown. This place is huge.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. My goal was always to get to Suffolk County, which is a little bit more east of Nassau County. Nassau County called me first, so I was like, what could be the difference of the counties? It's actually a huge difference.
You're right up against Brooklyn and Queens.
Just like I knew nothing about New York. I know. My precinct borders Queens now, where I'm at now. But when I was in the city, I knew nothing about Brooklyn. And then I live in Suffolk, so I was like, Suffolk would be perfect, an easier commute. And I ended up getting Nassau, which is great. I mean, I'm not complaining. But I still knew nothing about it, which is kind of like a blessing in disguise. Yeah.
I mean, when you went to NYPD, and you were in Brooklyn, you're just like, I thought there was tough guys here. So these guys with knit caps and skinny jeans. What's going on?
You know what's funny? If anybody's listening here from like the 5 boroughs, or they know the documentary The 7-5, or I think a movie is coming out now for it. That was my precinct back when I was in the city. And when I was in the academy, and it was the day where you were getting assigned your precincts, everybody was nervous. They didn't say, Dan, you got the 75th precinct. They just said, Dan, you're going to East New York. And I knew nothing about Brooklyn or, New York City. So I was like, East New York sounds nice. Sounds like Upper East Side.
Yeah, right. Good, nice ring to it.
And everybody's like, oh, no. They put their heads down. They're like, oh, man, you're a dead man. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, that's like the most violent precinct in the city. And I was like, how? It's in Manhattan. They're like, no, man, that's Brooklyn. I was like, oh, boy.
Yeah. Wow. You'd be the perfect person to ask. Like, since you left there, things have not gotten better. From what I hear, it sounds, I have a buddy who lives in Brooklyn. He manages a club there. And he sent me a photo of a guy using a legit like homemade flamethrower while standing on top of like an ice cream truck. This is during the pandemic.
Oh yes, I've seen that one. Yeah, I've seen that one. That was in I think that was in Bushwick or Bedford-Stuyvesant, I think.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell's going on? So where you are, how much of that craziness bleeds in to where you're policing?
Oh, we're gonna start off heavy because you're exactly right. So New York City, shout out to the new commissioner, Commissioner Sewell. She used to be the chief of detectives for Nassau County. So when I just got promoted to detective, when I came out to Nassau, I came out as cop to cop. Did like a year and a half. They started to have positions open for the squad. I put it in. And I was like, they're not going to take me, but I'll put it in to show them.
The squad, that's got to be a New York thing.
Oh, yeah, the squad. Yep. I don't know. What do you guys call it out by you?
Just detectives.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I guess it's both. Yeah. Whatever.
Right.
But she was the chief of detectives in Nassau County. Highly, highly respected. Very, very good. Very good at her job. And then she just recently switched from Nassau County chief to now the commissioner of New York City Police Department. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel because she is on point. She is very, very good. Highly respected by all the cops in the city. So that's one. It's a very good thing for the city that they have going. But the crime in the city substantially increased. I still have a bunch of friends that I keep in touch with back in my old command. And it's bad, man. It's bad for two reasons. It's bad because there's no repercussions for the criminals anymore because
they get right out.
Yep, the bail reform law. So it's really just a revolving door, and now they know that. So now they know there's like really no repercussions. Now, with that being said, people still go to jail and prison if they do like a heinous crime, but all the lower level crimes, it's very tough because it's just it makes the quality of life so much more poor. Just way, way less quality of life in the city and everywhere, all 5 boroughs. So Nassau County, I think 2 or 3 years in the running, labeled like the safest county in America for a while. I think we're still in the runner-up for it. But the problem now is, at least that I see from an anecdotal experience, is because my precinct that I'm on, that I'm in Nassau County right now, borders the Queens, and it doesn't border Brooklyn, but like you can get from Brooklyn to Nassau like pretty easily. It's a lot of those quote unquote perps, or a lot of the criminals from the city are seeing the opportunity that they come out to the suburbs, they come out to the affluent areas, and it's tons of property crimes that we're seeing right now. So it's a lot of, stolen vehicles. It's a lot of larcenies. It's a lot of, stealing merchandise and things like that. So Nassau County, amazing police department. They have their stuff together and they're tackling it very, very well.
A good DA that like charges people.
The patrol division is great. Oh, yeah. So you can't get around New York State bail reform, but all the assistant district attorneys, they work well with the detectives, the cops. Supervisors are great. I believe because it's a better job in Nassau County with better quality of life, better schedule, a little bit higher pay, that people are like happier to do their job and they're not totally burnt out. And the residents, like they love it's great. So it's a minor problem that's happening, but I don't see a reason why it wouldn't get solved. It's just going to be like an ebb and a flow, like how crime goes around in the country anyway. Yeah.
I hear in New York, I hear like these stories, where they're like you said, burnout rate. Like these cops are like, they're just burnt because it was already bad with people getting off when you had a solid case. It's always been like that if you're in a liberal area like Massachusetts. They want you to be almost like a friggin' doctor to get an OUI guilty. It's like you got to be like, your report's got to be on point. And then with the bail reform, it's like the cops are just like, what's the point? Like I've heard stories of people being like going around the corner and be like, hey, there's a car on fire in the center of the road. And the cop's like, oh, yeah? Is it in the road or off to the side? And they're like, well, it's kind of both. Oh, yeah? Wow. All right. Yeah, I'll check it out. Almost like mocking them. Like they don't care. You know what I mean? They're just like, I don't think anything can shock them at this point. It's like mayhem. And I also hear people are like you say, the quality of life is going way down. People are afraid to ride the subway because they're not taking care of these psychos on the subway at all. These guys rule certain train cars, and they might get picked up. They're back in 12 hours, and they're doing the same stuff, and they're bad dudes. It's not like the crazy homeless guy you'd look at and kind of chuckle and be like, oh man, that guy's nuts. It's like they're looking for you to like make eye contact. They're doing stuff so that you interact with them, so they have a reason. Like they're super aggressive, which is terrible, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely not great. That's for sure. You could see it in the price of real estate for like the eastern part of Long Island. Homes are being built like crazy. People who used to live in Manhattan, especially in like the affluent areas of Manhattan, they're all moving out east, all of them, and they're all building multi-million-dollar houses. You should see the traffic from like there, because going out east to Long Island, there's like one road when you get that far out to where everybody wants like the $1 million homes. Every single day in the morning, because it's all the construction workers going there to build, jam packed. It could take you an hour and 45, 2.5 hours to get out there, which would take you from where I live, my house would take me, 40 minutes. Might take you 2.5 hours.
Wow. So it's like LA. They're just bottlenecking, tons of congestion.
Yeah.
When I look at the map, like I've been to New York a bunch of times. So I said my buddy lives in Brooklyn. I always look at like the Google Maps on the way down there. I'm like, this Long Island is huge. Like you hear about it. It's a well-known place, but it's twice the size of Cape Cod. It's half of it like is way out in the ocean. That's like affluent homes out there, right? Like on the tip.
Oh yeah, that's the spot to live right there. If I could have had my choice, back when me and my wife were buying our house, I would have went all the way out there. I wouldn't even care about the commute. I'd make the commute happy. I'd be just get me away from all the people.
Yeah. Can you take a boat?
Very expensive.
Is there a ferry that goes?
So you could take the ferry from Connecticut. But for the most part, the island, like you could drive to pretty much everywhere you have to go, except if you're going to like Block Island, which I think is technically Rhode Island. I'm not sure. And then there's like Shelter Island, which is like right off there. You can take a ferry there, but everything else you can kind of drive on.
Okay, I like Long Island because I like people here talk about it are like there's a certain like Long Island pride, like people are like, they're pro Long Island. Like on the Cape. We had a dispatcher, and when I was new, small talk, and I'm like, "Are you from the Cape originally?" No, Long Island, baby. Like she loved it, She just
they may leave, but it'll always be in their blood.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, if you get all the way out at the end, there's a weird little island that belongs to Rhode Island. I forget what it's called, New Sherman or something, New something or other. It's kind of between Cuttyhunk, kind of, and like the tip of Long Island. Super rich, naturally.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I should have said when we started, I want to thank you again for the helping with the website. The people don't know the story. I had Dan on, and he very generously told everybody, like, I help cops out. So, if you need help with your side hustle, reach out to my company and, we'll work something out or whatever you had said. And then we got done the interview, and I think we talked like the next day or 2 days later, and you're like, dude, I'm doing a website for you. We got to get this going. And I was like, I don't know. You're like, no, I'm going to do it. We're going to make it. Don't worry about paying for it. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then and it wasn't like, this guy at home. It was like I got involved in like a Microsoft Teams meeting. There was other employees involved. I'm like,
yeah.
What Dan Jurowitsch has quite the thing going on. Like, so the side hustle for you was almost right off the bat. Were you doing this stuff before you became a cop?
Yeah. So the story goes is when I was before I worked in the city, I used to do just small freelance website stuff. Just make some side money here and there, like on Fiverr and things like that. Then when I went to the academy, stopped everything, wanted to focus. When I was working in the city, I had like no time for a side hustle, nor did I want to, because I legitimately loved the job. Yeah,
you're learning the job, you're into it.
Yeah, like this is like the stuff that I was born for. I could make $1 million tomorrow. Like I will never quit. It's honestly really what I love to do. But with that being said, I like money, and everybody likes money. And police work, there's two ways to get money. You get promoted or you work overtime. Right. So from 2015 to 18, I sold my soul to the New York City Police Department. And then at the end of every year, I looked at my pay stubs. I looked at my taxes. I had to pay city tax and state tax and this
Cool.
tax and federal. Yeah, just the best stuff. So I was like, you know what? I need to pick back up the side hustle. And I was waiting for Nassau County to put in another academy class. So I was like, you know what? If I make it to Nassau, I'm going to take a huge pay cut, which I eventually did. I took like a 75% pay cut.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I almost would have qualified for food stamps. I was very, very close. I think they do it on purpose where they give you like $100 more, so that this way you
Yeah.
can qualify for them. But it was tough, man. It was really tough. I was I was getting married when I made the switch over first. We were planning a wedding. I bought a house 6 months before that. And then after we got married, we immediately had our first kid and then the second kid. And then I was just grinding hard. So I built up the marketing agency after the marketing agency, I took a position as the marketing director for a company called PrintScan, which they're a nationwide fingerprinting company. The CEO of PrintScan, super, super helpful, kind of took me under his wing, taught me all about the industry. Very nice guy. I'd be nowhere without him right now. Then I built another company and I stopped the marketing a little bit. And now we do another company called Fingerprinting Classes, where we teach people how to build fingerprinting businesses, all that good stuff. And that's what I'm doing currently, while still being Nassau County detective with the 2 kids and everything. Thankfully, I've learned a very good skill of delegating and having a team. Otherwise, this would never be possible. But yeah, man, the side hustle stuff is important, especially if people are listening to this and like they are cops or they want to be cops. Like, it's very important because if you work like so much overtime, you will burn out. And the things that happen after burnout are all bad. Alcoholism, just bad attitudes, poor performance at work. You all over just become like a really crappy person. So you got to have hobbies, and then you got to be happy with your financial situation. And the answer is not always work, 90 hours overtime a month.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, man. I mean, I probably work 50 at the very least, and 70 at the high end to make
That's
it
a lot.
work.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, and where I work isn't super high stress. It's a nice. I like the area I work in. It's like it's pretty rural, but we still have our calls. We still have our stressful calls, and then we have the extra work, and it's hard, man. Like it's like our electric bill is really high. My wife stays home. We have 3 kids. That's the way I want it. That's why I want it to work. Not really interested in having my kids be educated in the state of Massachusetts at all. But it's really, really tough. Like there's months where like it's like we've been at a point where it's just like breaking even all the time. Yeah. Like we're not like we're saving a little, then something will happen, and then that's gone, and it's like this is brutal. Hence the frequent podcasting and Patreon and all that stuff. I mean, can you imagine, Dan, if this thing I started in 2018 somehow paid my mortgage, or ended up supporting me down the road, like doing something I really love doing. Like I love being a cop too, but this is like, as the overtime and details and road work and stuff, that's physical stuff. Like you're wearing your body down. It's nice to have something different that you do, something like implode, a little more cerebral, a little bit more creative. You know what I mean? It's nice to have that to be able to do. And I think cops undersell themselves a lot. I think the requirements to be a cop they're pretty tough, pretty rigorous. And you work with a bunch of cops. They're very resourceful. They have a lot of different skills that are marketable, but to them, if they can't and I was the same way for a long time. I was like, I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to do, I couldn't build a house. I couldn't do that. They're only thinking of like the trades or these technical skills. Cops can do all kinds of stuff, obviously.
I'll tell you right now, remote work, especially post-pandemic, is like the best thing to do if you're on the job. Like it is like the best, because remote work, as long as you're not tied to a schedule where like you have professional services during the day or something like that, you could do it at night. Like if you're a night owl and it's like you're working midnights and then it's the second day and you're like up and like your family's asleep and you're like, well, what the heck do I do from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.? Well, there you go. Just answer emails, do whatever you want. Remote work is the best. I'm very blessed that I was able to have this like kind of fall into my lap and built it to work remote. And it actually complements the police work, believe it or not. And the police work complements the business work because if you think about it, like I've been on, sales calls before with my business or like, negotiating a deal or like just a problem happens in the business and everybody, like the whole team thinks it's a huge problem. I'm like, no big deal. And they're like, what do you mean no big deal? Like this. And I was like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. And everybody's like, what do you mean? So that works and it makes you better in business or a side hustle, whatever you're doing. And then police work makes you better in it because, I mean, just think of all the problems that like we deal with, like talking to people, having emotional intelligence, like having like good mental fortitude for like like honestly, if cops were able to break through the stigma of like not just good at being a cop, they're like the best business people, the best because nothing like they've seen it all, they've heard it all, they've seen it all, like nothing bothers them. Like in business, there's a good quote by, I don't know if it was Elon Musk or if Elon Musk heard it from another person, but they said building a company or building a business is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. And if it's getting really big and it's doing really well, it kind of is like that. But the best part is as cops, we're pretty much used to that. So it goes hand in hand.
Absolutely, Dan. I've said that before. I've spent some years in the corporate world and then working as a civilian background investigator for LAPD, and watching people in civilian jobs get worked up or upset or stressed out. In the background unit, it was like all other retired or injured on-duty cops and like never got upset. They're like, this is nothing. Like, big deal. You're not at like a horrible scene where people are injured and you're having to do triage and put on tourniquets, or no one's shooting at you. No one just hung themselves. No one's beating their kids. Like it's after that, like I even told my wife when I come for that 4 years I did not in police work, I just felt like I never had a stress level. I just feel like this is like a 9 to 5 job after you've been a cop is like, it's so stress wise anyways. It's
you're like, this is the best. Like I get to sit down and
puts everything
get paid and do work. This is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great. And you're a generous guy. I think that's part of your success is you're not, you've helped Ken out before from policebackgrounds.net. You're not shy to lend a hand and help. I even like just, when I write those, like once in a while, I'll reach out to Dan on text message, be like, can you change this on the website? Because this thing is now this thing, or can you add the Patreon? And I'm like, geez, I feel bad even asking. And you're like, yeah. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So, that's being generous like that, I think only helps with just like the general aura of how you do business.
Yeah. It goes a long way. I've had people, or like we've had customers in my other business where like we've helped out for free 6 months ago, and then 6 months later they come back and they're like, they purchase whatever we have. You don't even have to sell them on anything. They're just like, we want to pay you money to do it. And we're like, okay. And they're like, no, you helped me out so much. And like, it comes back. It really does.
Yeah. They say, I hear that a lot with people who are getting into, they have a side hustle kind of like mine, just kind of helping people for free. Like just showing,
just give,
put the value up front, let them see the value. That's the best advertisement. And then reap the benefits later. And it just makes a great relationship. So you're killing it, man. I'm glad we're buddies.
Thank you.
Don't block me.
So if you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe on Patreon. I'll plug it for you.
All right. Yes. Thank you. So Dan, newly appointed, or not newly actually, you've probably been on the squad for how long? A couple years?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. I reckon you may have some stories from this new venture.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Hit me. I mean, there's probably a few that are still ongoing in court that I probably won't be able to talk about, but there's, after 2.5 years, there's some good ones, funny ones, sad ones, crazy ones.
What would you say was the first like bigger or more serious case you caught when you became detective?
So when I got promoted, It was during the pandemic, and I solely believe one of the only reasons I got promoted is because there was like 11 detectives out with COVID, and
Hell
they
yes.
were just they were just burning overtime like crazy. So they're like, oh, just promote anybody. So
Yeah, right. We need
I was actually on leave because my first child was born, and I remember a bunch of people were texting me like, congratulations, and I was like, thanks. He's like 4 days old now, but thanks. And they were like, no, like you got promoted, and I was like, what do you mean? So I checked.
You
My
didn't even
email.
know?
No, it's because it was during the pandemic, everything was shut down, everybody was going nuts. It's like things were like haywire, so I didn't even check my email. I look at my email and there's a personnel order saying like, police officer Jurowitsch promoted to detective. I'm like,
How good did that feel?
Oh, it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So my first one was the first precinct I went to when I was officially a detective. Not much was going on because everything was shut down. So honestly, I did not do much at all.
Perfect perfect time to learn the job.
Oh, it was great. It was great. And I was actually in the busiest precinct in Nassau County to be in the squad. So when I tell people like, oh, where did you start? I'm like, oh, I started in this precinct. And they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, no, it was during COVID. It was only for a month. And then they switched me somewhere else. And they're like, never mind. So, but then I tell them about the city experience and they're like, oh, okay, all right. This guy hopefully knows what he's talking about, which hopefully I do. But when I got to the where I'm at now, where I've been at for about 2.5 years, it's a very affluent area on the island. So I was not expecting the entire switch from working in inner city and Brooklyn and crime and like bad criminals to like super affluent property crimes, big money crime, things like that. It was totally crazy. But the first one that was like eye-opening to me was a residential burglary where these two guys scaled the building, broke the second-story window because the second-story window does not have alarms on it, or typically they do have alarms, but if they do, they're not glass break alarms. They're just like lifting alarms. So they usually tap the window, go in, ransack the whole house, and after everything was counted up, it was like $800,000.
Whoa.
Jewelry, cash. They stole the car from like just crazy movie level type stuff.
Like a heist.
And then pretty much like a heist. And the homeowners get there and they're phased because it's a burglary. It's, invasion on your personal space. But like the material things that were I remember the guy clearly, he was like, I don't care about the material thing. I just care now my wife and my kids, when they sleep at night, they're going to be scared. He's like, the material stuff that could all be replaced. And I'm like, what could be replaced? It's like $800,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was very shocking to me that it was a whole different world of like very, very affluent, rich families. And they're not the stereotypical affluent, rich families that you would think where they're like, douchebags or they're not nice. Right. They're like the best, like so nice, so nice. So it like all my stereotypes were like broken about like, this crime actually happens. It's not movie level type stuff, although it is more rare because you have to get professionals that are doing it. But and then the people that the crime is happening to, it's not the typical, like you see in the movies, a house gets burglarized and like you don't like the rich people because they like ripped off some people. Like it's not like that at all. It's like it was very eye opening to me that there's criminals at this much of a professional level where they literally do this for their job, and they've probably hit 7 more houses in the past 6 months like this, and they're making like so much money. It is ridiculous. And eventually those two, they were caught, they were sent to prison. I think they got like 7 to 10, which I believe they may be out now on conditional release from upstate New York. I'd have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure they're out on conditional release from upstate New York for good behavior, quote unquote. So they'll probably start doing it again. But yeah, man, it was crazy learning about that whole organized crime, type. Just that first scene was like, I was not the one covering the scene. It was not my case. I was learning from a senior detective, but just going through the motions of like everything that you could do in this scene. And Nassau County is amazing when it comes to like the resources that they can apply to those types of scenes. I mean, fingerprints, you're looking at DNA collection, you're looking at data dumps from Wi-Fi servers, ring door camera, like circles that you can draw on a map, and it pushes everybody a notification to say, please give video to the police. Just the craziest stuff. I was looking at it, I was like, New York City maybe had that. Maybe I didn't know back then. Maybe they do have crazy stuff like that. But just seeing that for the first time opened up my eyes. I was like, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm way in over my head.
Yeah, high tech stuff. I've run into that before where it's like, you can get this information. Where do you start? Like, how do you start with all these tech companies? Because they have it, you want it. Is it a warrant? Is it an administrative subpoena? That's what we deal with up here.
It depends.
Yeah, we're guided a lot by the DA's office because we're, a lot of the agencies where I work are small, and then we just don't have full-time detectives. So it's like, you catch a case, you're going all the way through with it, baby. I mean, if you've never written a warrant, get ready because you're writing a warrant, and the DA is going to look at it and be like, I got some suggestions.
Write it again.
So don't submit this to the clerk. So you're dealing with, these aren't guys, this isn't some crackhead who wrapped a t-shirt around his hand and smashed a window. These guys probably have like night vision goggles. They're like, they're in shape. They're on belay climbing up the side of a house. That's nuts, dude.
I think they call them, so the big thing
it's like a cat burglar, right? Old school.
Yes, it's exactly right. It's happening a lot over like the Northeast, specifically the East Coast. I know out West too it's happening, but they call them, I believe, the South American Theft Group.
Oh, really?
So a lot of it happens, they come from like Chile, or they come from these like South American countries where they get into the country on a special visa, like an ESTA visa or whatever they call it. I forget what it's called again. I don't want to, I know probably a lot of this is like not public information, so I won't be able to go too deep into it, but
sure.
There is a lot of organized crime out there that specifically target residential homes, high affluent areas, stolen cars like crazy, because everybody has a push to start now. And everybody leaves their extra key fob in the car, especially if you have a new car, because this just happened to my wife. We got a new lease, and the dealer comes out, gives her the keys, and says, here is your packet with your manual and this and that, and your spare key. And your spare key is wrapped in cellophane, like from the dealership, from the company. And what does everybody do with the manual? They put it in the freaking glove box.
Yeah.
And if they don't take out that spare key before that, all somebody has to do is pop the door, step on the brake, hit the button. You got a free car, baby. Like, as long as you have gas in it, like, you're good to go.
Yeah, we had our car stolen in LA, and they broke into our Prius, which was in a secure garage underneath our apartment, and then in the Prius was the fob for the truck, big diesel truck I had, and they just went out to the street and were like, beep, 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 beep. Oh, there it is.
And they stole the truck, right? Yep.
Yeah, and LAPD was like, as good as these guys are, and they are. There's great cops there. They were like, they could not care less. I called them. They're like, just come into the station. Are you going to send anybody out? Check cameras and stuff? No, we don't do that. Like,
it's hard. Yeah.
It's a misdemeanor.
Those cases, believe it or not, are so difficult to solve. They're so hard to solve. I would say the burglary case, like those big cases, we have a special team that deals, like special detectives that deal
like
with
auto
that,
crime.
like guys. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I'm talking about the burglary stuff. Oh, we do have auto crime guys too, but the lower level stuff like that, stolen cars, they push that over to precinct level detectives. Those cases are really hard to solve, man. Really hard to solve, because if you don't have cameras, you got pretty much nothing. And then you have to, if the car doesn't have GPS, then you really have nothing. All you can hope and pray for is if they kept the license plates on the car, and you can do license plate reader hits, depending on where they take them. But even if that's the case, so you get on a computer screen like, oh, this car was driving over such and such bridge at this time. All right, well, where the hell is it now? So we get crushed with those.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that truck got stolen, and because it was a diesel Duramax, it was like an 06. It's like the motor everybody wants. It's an LBZ, which means it like didn't have the emission stuff tacked on. It was right before they did that, and it had huge, like 650 foot-pounds of torque in a pickup truck, which is a lot.
That's insane.
Now the new diesels are like a tractor trailer. They have like 1,000, which is insane. But anyways, this was like a very hot car, so I called my insurance company. They did they checked the comps for the area you're in. I paid $28,500 for the truck with 45,000 less miles on it in Massachusetts, and they paid me $31,000.
Oh my goodness!
Like 5 years later.
Yeah, they did you a favor.
I was like, great. So I took the money, and we actually put it towards a down payment on a house we bought in
Nice.
just outside LA. But when I got on as an insurance investigator, I couldn't help myself. So I put the VIN in, and I'm looking through the insurance databases. I found it. And I love this truck. It's like my favorite truck I ever owned. I had like the black rims on it with the nice BFGs, and like I put a touch screen thing that replaced the, like one of those touch screens big. So it was like old school but newer. And I found all the pictures. I found the junkyard it was at. All my stuff that was in there, the insurance company was like, yeah, you can go down there and get it at the auction house, and they'll have your stuff. They never had it. But in the pictures, it was like freshly going through, and I could see all my stuff, my kids' stuff.
Oh, man.
It sucked, dude. I wish I'd never done that. But
Yeah.
I got 31 Gs, so I can't complain.
Yeah, there you go. Something good can happen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Another story from the squad. How about... I would say a bizarre one.
Oh man, a bizarre one. That's a good question for a bizarre one. So, for a bizarre one, I guess we can go off of this is pretty cool, and I will
Any genre of detective story is good. It doesn't have to be bizarre.
Yeah, I would say a bizarre one that I found was like pretty cool, just to see like the inner workings of the police department. And this case may still be going on, so I'll change small things here and there so nobody can pinpoint it to exactly who it was. But,
sure.
So there was in the affluent area that I work in, there's a lot of property crimes, burglaries, and stuff like that. So in one area, I was covering a case once, and we found a blood trail from that case, and not so much a blood trail, but more so as a feminine product. I'll just leave it at that.
Understood.
And it was maybe like 70, 80 feet from where the actual crime happened. And I remember looking at it thinking, I was like, I don't think this is related at all. But I was like, you know what? If it is and I don't take it, I was like, my boss is going to kick my ass.
And it's so weird. You're probably like, I should do something with this.
Didn't make sense. And everybody with me that was with me at the scene, like they agreed. They're like, yeah, man, that's weird. Just like grab it. Doesn't come back to anything. Lo and behold, about 6 months later, somebody was arrested in the precinct that I was working in. And I'll leave some of the details out because now that I'm thinking about it, this is definitely still an active case. But this is probably like somewhat of a common story. It just shows the inner workings and like how bizarre police work can get and how everything connects together. Somebody was arrested. And because they were suspicious that this person was connected to some other type of crime, they collected DNA from them. And if people don't know this, if somebody's drinking a water bottle in an interview room or something like that, and they throw it out, it's discarded property. We could take it and we can swab it for DNA. So that's what ended up happening. It was perfect. I was off for this. I was not working, but they would keep me updated what was going on. So I was like, all right, cool, no problem. I was like, so about 2 months after that, the DNA comes back that I collected from that scene. It takes a long time because we use a New York State lab and they get tons of samples that are sent over, and it comes back with a hit. And I'm like, a hit? I was like, this is crazy. Like a hit on the, quote unquote feminine product that I found out there that had blood on it. And I was like, this is crazy. And I was like, comes back to a hit, but I was like, let me see who it comes back to. It could come back to, grandma who had DNA collected for something else that just lives 2 blocks down. I don't know.
Just a person that has submitted to the database.
Exactly. And it comes back to the same person that was arrested.
Damn.
And we're linking it up. And then everything kind of made sense when I thought about it and I saw it on paper. And I was like, holy crap. Now this makes sense. And I was like, I'm so glad, because Patrol was the one that arrested that person. I was like, I'm so glad they did that. I'm so glad the detective that was working at the time was smart enough to get a DNA sample. I'm so glad that I grabbed that in the first time. In the first place, and I'm like, this is freaking cool. Bizarre, but cool.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets funny, because I call up the specialty detectives, and I'm like, man, dude, I got this crazy thing, and I was like, you're gonna love this, and they're really freaking good. The guy was like, he's like, yeah, man. He's like, that happens all the time. Like, we kind of know about it. I'm like, happens all the time. I was like, this is not. He's like, yeah, man, it happens. Good police work. Good job. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'll come in. And they were like very good to me. They were like, yeah, good job. Pat on the back. But I was just like, so like mind blown. I was like, this is such a bizarre thing. The fact that these guys are like so good that like, this is like routine to them.
Yeah.
I was like, this is freaking crazy. But it was definitely a bizarre one in the squad where just a lot of things that you wouldn't think would come together did come together. And it started from, just something that you looked at and you're like, oh, that's strange. Like, how could that be connected? But meanwhile, it helped solve a whole bunch of stuff. So it was a pretty bizarre one.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So many times in police work, you've had that moment when you're doing a case and it feels like, or you're even just a street level investigation, and you're like, I should go talk to that guy. Nah, that doesn't make sense. You're like,
Meanwhile, that's probably the guy.
Yeah, and then maybe I will. And then they give you this gem, and you're like, damn, I wasn't even going to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And now I have a case because I talked to him. It's so crazy how like you kind of lose you kind of like, just write it off, and then those little things a lot of times are what help break cases. Because
I always say that, like, I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
No, it's okay. You just did a little Max Headroom digital sputtering. No, say what you were saying.
I was gonna say somebody used to still work with him, says this. He's like, if you dig, you will find something. That's like his golden rule. He's like, if you dig, you will find something. So when the cop upstairs says like, hey man, can you kind of like look into this? Like, be careful, because if you dig, you will be sitting there like 7 cups of coffee later, and with like a whole. I don't know if anybody's seen that meme from. I think the show is It's Sunny in Philadelphia, where the guy's pointing at like all the things on the wall, and it's like all connect. Like you will be that person in like 10 hours. Like if you just continue to dig.
Yeah, with like the red yarn, just going piece to piece.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You will be there. You'll be like this and this and this, and everybody will think you're nuts, but you'll be like, oh, I'm cracking the case. Meanwhile, it's like, you can get into whatever you want to get into, even the lowest level stuff.
Absolutely. So Dan, do you have one more, like maybe most intense, I'm going to give you a variety here. Most intense story or a very Long Island investigation?
Oh boy. Well, you know what? It's where I'm working. It's so close to the border of Queens, and it's in like a very affluent area that it's not like real typical Long Island stuff. So
does your jurisdiction go over into New York? You guys go back and forth, no problem, into the city?
So we still have jurisdiction in New York, state level, but for specific things, we have county-wide jurisdiction for specific things, and then outside of the county, like New York City and stuff like that, like we can go there as detectives and investigate things. They're much more weary of it now because there's that new administrative law where like you can get arrested for a felony if you kneel on somebody's back as a city cop. There's a whole bunch of so they don't like us going there too much, especially without supervision, but we can pretty much go anywhere we want. I guess I could tell you a crazy one. This is when I was still like a newer detective. So there was and this case I'm pretty sure is over with, so I could definitely talk about it, but there was a very affluent mall where I work. If anybody's listening, they know it, the mall right off the top of your head. So during the day, broad daylight, there's a sneaker store there. Everybody's waiting on this new sneaker release, which this store just opened up maybe a few months ago. The only other store of its kind is in Manhattan. So where do you think all the city people are going? Because this is just after, this is still kind of during the pandemic. It's in the summer. People are trying to go out. So all the people that would have been waiting online in Manhattan that are from Brooklyn, Queens, wherever, they're all going to this store.
It's the Air Jordans or something?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. I don't know. I'm not into sneakers, but I know it was big because there's a lot of people there. But that's the perfect storm for guys who live in this borough or guys who live in this part, don't like this guy, don't like that guy. Now they're all coming to the same place. So what ends up happening is this guy's online. He's waiting for the sneaker release. In broad daylight, people eating with their kids, walking around. Like, this is a mall, super safe. Nothing ever happens. Broad daylight, I swear, like we were back in Brooklyn. Guy whips out a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, throws 7 rounds downrange, just trying to clearly kill this guy. Hits nobody.
Whew.
Ricochets off a ton of buildings. We're finding lead everywhere in the parking lot. This is not my case. This is one of my old partners' case. They ended up taking up the investigation with other guys from the gang squad and stuff like that. Did an amazing job. Caught one of the guys, but the guy who he was shooting at also had a gun, and he's running. Now he never shot anything, but he's running inside crowds of people. They're still shooting at him. They hit a bunch of cars. It's just full blown mayhem in the middle of the day. 911 calls like nuts.
Oh,
like
I bet.
one after the other, after the other, after the other. Usually, if you get a call like for shots fired, if it's like one, you're like, maybe it's fireworks, maybe it's this, maybe just a loud exhaust from the parkway or the interstate or something like that. But we're in the office, and we hear it come over the radio, and they're saying like, right now 911 call for shots fired at the mall, and we're like, maybe somebody's pulling a prank, maybe not. And the radio just keeps going. Second call in regards, third call in regards, multiple 911 callers, multiple people running, people trapped inside of places, and we're like, holy crap! Like people are gonna be dead. We're thinking mass shooter.
Yeah.
We're thinking mass because then somebody ends up calling because it was so many rounds at once. It sounded like semi-automatic fire. So somebody, and this is crazy because we could listen to the 911 tapes. I hear an older gentleman who called 911 after I listened back to it, and he was definitely like, former military, and he was definitely much, much older, and you could tell like he snapped back into like military. He's like on the phone, he's like semi-automatic fires, like it just craziness. So we like throw our vests on, we're like running down there. I have my little pea shooter, detective gun there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna freaking die.
I need a rifle.
Like, yeah, we're going into a mass shooting incident. I was like, this is it, we're dead. And we get there. Patrol does an amazing job. They see one of the guys running down the street. They grab him. Another guy runs to a restaurant, ditches the gun. They grab him. They grab the gun. They grab the other guys after like a drawn out investigation. They end up IDing them. Great, just like incredible job. But it was like it was just crazy and a blessing that nobody was hit, nobody was hurt. People were caught. Like we ended up arresting people. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And it's funny because when I was there, I was still somewhat new to the squad. So I'm like kind of letting everybody, take over and watching it unfold. And I'm definitely not like the smartest guy in the room. That's for sure. And, the New York City has, put a little bit of salt in me for the most part. So sometimes for like lower level things, it's kind of like, it happens all the time. Let's deal with the bigger stuff. But this one, I was like, holy crap, we're like back in Brooklyn, man. This is nuts.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect storm, like a very rare occurrence. Like this stuff never happens in that area, and it has not happened since. So it's definitely like a one-off scenario. But man, yeah, pretty crazy. Brought me back to the Brooklyn days.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
a minute.
I think of Dumb and Dumber when he's like, Harry, you're a terrible shot.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, we look at the video footage and we're just like astonished. Like, I don't know how this round didn't go hit that. I mean, if you want to get real, I don't know how this round didn't hit the sidewalk, skip off, ricochet, hit this 5-year-old girl who's eating dinner at an outdoor restaurant with their family. Like, just craziness, man. We were finding lead ricochets by tables where people were eating, by sidewalks, by this ice cream place, like cars with bullet holes in it, just like riddled all. And I think it was only like 9 rounds, but just evidence being collected all over the place. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, the ricochets are a real problem in the city because everything's hard. And like, actually, believe it or not, I took a class with Glock, the 3-day like instructor's class. I'm a firearms guy, and one of the instructors was a Nassau County police officer, retired.
Oh wow!
This was 2006, so it's a long time ago. I'm sure he might not even work for Glock anymore.
Before my time, yeah, I was still in high school.
But he told us, they were teaching us about all different stuff. The cool thing about when you do training outside of like the state required stuff, the private companies that come in, they usually have special forces guys that have been teaching firearms for 30 years. So they had the real deal stuff. And a lot of these guys have been in gunfights. And they were saying, like, if you're in a gunfight, they said, depending on the height of the vehicle, a round will typically, if you skip it off the pavement, it's only going to go up 4 to 6 inches and travel like that down the road. So so we were doing shooting, and he's like, if it's an SUV, just start blasting rounds at their legs under the car. Those will skip up and hit those guys. So I never forgot about that. I was like, damn, I didn't know that. So when you were telling that story, all I could think about was all these hard surfaces, just like because it's not like 9 rounds went off. It's like I don't know what the multiplier would be, but every time it hits a surface,
one round turns into 2, 3, and I don't know if they were hollow points or Full Metal Jacket or whatever, and I don't know what the science is on whether hollow points probably ricochet more. I would imagine so because they kind of plume out.
Right.
But yeah, man, it's great. It turns into like 4 bullets. Like,
damn, man. A little bit off topic. What do you do with all that you have going on? What do you do to stay healthy? You work out? Are you a yoga guy?
No. So that's a good question.
Thank goodness.
Since our last podcast, little bit of dad bod has crept in. A little bit, not too much. I attribute it to the lack of sleep and the finishing of the chicken nuggets that my son doesn't eat. So I'll attribute
that's dad's responsibility, number one. Number two,
yes,
absolutely. You got a thin build to you anyway, so it doesn't look like you could really get too out of control.
Yeah, I didn't. I kept an eye on it for the most part. Some of it I was kind of I don't want to say excited for, but I was like, you know what? I have been like fully out of my mind, workout, jujitsu, box, for a long time. Like it's time to just not be so crazy and anal about tracking calories and things like that. So I don't really. I kind of just eat when I'm full now, which is good. I try not to eat too much crap. Absolutely stay away from alcohol. That is like the number one thing.
Empty calories, baby.
Yeah, especially in the cop world. Of course you want to enjoy 1 or 2 drinks, but don't make it a habit. That stuff can get rough. That'll definitely eat up at you. But right now for me, because time is of the essence and I have to optimize my time because I'm doing, law enforcement, the detective stuff, the family stuff, the business stuff.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that helps me right now is push-ups, great compound exercise.
Hell yeah.
And honestly, man, just going for walks. Going for walks is great. Brisk walk. Try and multitask. Listen to a podcast. Some people are probably walking right now. Listen to this. You never know.
Absolutely.
That
or in the gym.
Yes, 100%. That and my jiu-jitsu time has significantly decreased because I used to be a maniac and go to the gym, roll every I think I was down to 5-6 days a week, just consistent. So now I'm probably, I roll with the guys at the job has a grappling club and, I still go to my other gym from time to time. So not as much as I'd like, probably once a week, once every other week.
It's not bad though.
Yeah. It's just trying to stay active as much as possible. The 2 biggest things are sleep, which is tough with 2 small kids, and shift work. That'll crush you. But honestly, just don't overdo it with your food and just still try to moderately exercise. Do something that you could stick to day in and day out.
That's the key.
Crazy. Yeah. Don't go crazy building a plan and tracking tracking calories is great. Don't get me wrong, but whatever you can do every day, just do that. And
Absolutely.
As long as you keep it consistent, that's fine. And that's what I kind of now.
The push-ups are huge. I mean, I've been reading all kinds of stuff lately because I've been doing kettlebell stuff. But when I was in college, we were into lifting, and it was I think I got up to 325 on bench, but we were at the point where it was I was getting fat because I was so into lifting heavy weights. I'm but I look like shit. It's I'm not
up and everything.
Why? I look like I could run through walls, but what's the point? This is stupid. So when I went to police academy, they ran the crap out of us, but we did a lot of calisthenics, jumping jacks, push-ups, burpees, and we did almost no weightlifting. Maybe on a rainy day, they would bring us to the gym. It was a treat. You could lift weights. But when we did our exit exam, one rep max was a thing that they wrote down, and I had not done bench press, not exaggerating, for years. Because going to an academy, it's like the military. They don't care about your muscle. They want stamina. They want you to be able to do stuff for a long period of time. So I just ran. But because of all the push-ups and burpees and calisthenics, I did 285 one rep max.
Yeah, you keep it, man. You absolutely.
I had not touched a weight forever, and I swear it's just because of the calisthenics, the body weight, just doing that. And I just read an article recently that they said the instance of, it was I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember, but the instance of heart attack in men is reduced by it was 40 or 50%, or maybe even higher, for guys that regularly do just push-ups. I'm not talking about like crazy workouts. Just do something like you said. And past guest Bill Broadway, he's working on setting up a little side hustle himself. For the guy's ripped. Like he's one of those cops that's just like boom. He's a cop and he also just works out constantly. Yeah. He's the kind of guy like if he's gonna miss a workout, he'll just wake up at 4 a.m. I gotta get this. You know what I mean? Like that's not me. Yeah. But I was up. He said, "Hey, I'll help you out." I said, "Yeah, I gotta do something because I was getting a little heavy. My, uniforms are not forgiving. They remind you your gun belt.
100%.
You come back from vacation and you're like, click. Yeah. This is gonna be an uncomfortable shift. Yeah, it's terrible. So I told him I gotta have something I can do, just like couple 3 times a week. I just want to stay strong. Like as a guy, you want to stay strong. Like you just want to stay like." Somewhat toned. You start to feel really bad about yourself as a man if you start just getting like soft. So he wrote me these kettlebell workouts because I had said, hey, kettlebells are really interesting to me. I hear people talk about them for the last 10 years like crazy. And he gave me these kettlebell workouts, like high intensity. Right now I'll do like a high intensity workout I can do up to like a half an hour now. Like I'm only doing like twice a week. And even my wife has said like my shoulders, my chest has all come back. My abs are buried under a beer belly, but my core in general, I don't get the aches and pains I used to get. I feel strong. Yep. It's completely changed everything, and it's really not that much effort. Just a little bit of.
Just one thing. I got one in the what weight do you use? Like a 25 or 35 or more?
So for the kettlebells. So if I'm doing overhead, my shoulders are really not in great shape because of the weightlifting stuff in sports. But if I'm doing overhead, I'll use a 24. Like if it's a clean press, or like a squat or a what do they call it when your legs are apart, like a lunge, like press or something.
Yeah, but, I don't know what they call the exact exercise.
Yeah, but I have to look it up every time. Like how do I do this? And then but that's part of it because you're using all these micro muscles to balance. And then so if I do swings or if I do like raise ups. Or like Romanian deadlift things, I'll do the 50-pounder. So I ended up buying a 50-pound kettlebell for like the below, like if I'm not going overhead, I try to stick with the 50-pounder.
Yeah, any like pulling motion or something like that.
Exactly. So it's the 50's pretty heavy. Like when you start swinging it, it's like when I first started using it, I was like, it was way too early. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can take me with it. Exactly. But now I swing like crazy with the thing, and it's just great, man. It's great for your confidence too to have like, even if you like your uniform's just your belt's a little bit looser, or you're wearing wearing pants that you hadn't worn in like a year.
Feels good, man. It
Dude,
feels very good.
And you got to do it as a cop because it's like, it's so easy to go get that like heat lamp burger or pizza or, it's late.
Very, very easy.
You get the monster drink that's like a pot of coffee, and it's just terrible for you.
That's probably my one guilty pleasure right now is energy drinks.
Yeah.
It's a bad. I as much as possible try to stick to like black coffee and not overdo it.
Yep.
But sometimes, man, 1 a.m. still at the office, especially with those lights, we rather go for a drive, or if we got stuff we got going on, I'm just like, crack a Monster real quick.
Dude,
It's always a bad idea because like half hour after I feel like crap. I feel like garbage.
To make myself feel better, I'm like a riboflavin, Thermite.
Yeah,
I'm like, these are vitamins. And then I do the zero sugar watermelon lately. Ah, man.
Okay.
It's so friggin' good. I don't want the sugar, but I know whatever's replacing the sugar is like terrible. But they are the science that goes behind making these things tasty is like borderline satanic. Like you take a drink and I'm like, I could eat a whole pizza now. No,
it cannot be. I will say one more thing I actually do that I forgot to mention because I'm doing it right now. Stand-up desk, amazing.
Oh,
change the whole game because I do a lot on my days off. A lot of the time, I'm sitting at a computer.
Sure.
Stand-up desk changes the game. So good.
Yeah, because when you sit down, believe it or not, when I was in LA, I mean, this is the most LA thing I'm probably ever going to say. When I was in LA, if you sat at a desk for your job, so when you're a background investigator, you have field work, but those are a day or 2 a week. You're mostly at your desk typing reports and like interviews you did. And, it just creeps in. I never had a desk job, and all of a sudden your shoulders are down, and your neck's like this, and you're like, and then you go home and you're like, you feel like like a pretzel. So they have an ergonomics department where you can put an order in with the city. They'll send a person to observe you work at your desk for an hour. I'm not joking.
That is very California-ish.
It's so tender.
That's good. That's good though.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they're pouring millions of dollars into this department, I don't know. Maybe get some more cops out there. But so like you're using the mouse and like you could use a little gel pad under your wrist. Ooh, oh, thank you. Are you comfortable with your chair? They will buy you if you order this like review. They will buy you a new chair. These chairs, as you know, office chairs, like a good one. Yeah, they're expensive as hell.
Yeah,
so that
not cheap.
And then they're watching the phone, and you're if you're like doing this and you're typing, they're like, oh no, terrible for your neck. We're gonna get you a Bluetooth headset, and I'm not joking. It's I never had it done, but the guy next to me did, so I watched the whole thing, and I was like, this is so. In my mind, I'm like, this is so weak. You're like such a weak little bitch getting this done. But then 6 months later, I'm like, my whole body hurts.
It's killing me.
Yeah. So I thought that was very LA. I did not partake.
One of my old lieutenants, she's a savage. She had a stand-up desk. She was always doing a stand-up desk, had weights in there. Like she was amazing. She did the FBI Academy, all this crazy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Stand-up desk, weights in there, a little stress ball thing. Like the healthiest person I ever met in my life. I'm like, you are nuts, but I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. We had a guy go, one of our kind of like part-time DIs in Academy. He had come back from FBI Academy. He was like a captain at his department. So the command staff, they send to the Academy, when they can. And it was like Burpee City. He was like, you ever heard of a burpee? These are the best things God ever created. And we're like, what is a burpee? I wanted to die. I mean, it's basically just an up-down from if you played football. Up, down, up, down. 100%. It's all you're doing. He was all in shape. And then like more recently, I saw a picture of him. He's like huge. I'm like, dude, what happened to the old burpee? Yeah. Burpee City, brother. What happened? But that's kind of what happens sometimes when you're an admin. Hey, man, if you have time, I'd love to get your input on a listener question. You up for it?
Yeah, 100%. Hit me.
All right. Let me get this guy. So Brandon Hooker, sergeant at the Patreon, is saying, if I'm working towards preparing to apply for my local PD, is it worth that effort to get some licensed security experience? I'm currently working in a pharmacy in a laboratory, which isn't relevant experience at all. So you want to answer that first? You want me to?
Yeah, I can take it on. I guess I would have two views about it.
Me too.
One is good on you for even thinking that in the first place.
Exactly.
You're like some of the top % of people who like actually are thinking forward for it. So like, good for you. First of all, pat on the back. But second of all, I would say be careful with security guard experience, because any type of security guard experience may come lawsuits. And if you're a civilian, you get a lawsuit, it's going to screw up your background check. Where are you doing security? That's another thing. If it's in, a mall, in a car, you're not really conversating with people too much. Like it's truly dependent on the job. If you're one of those security guards who's standing at an event and you're like talking to people, interacting, amazing, good. But I would say just be careful about it. Being a bouncer at a bar, probably stay away from that for the most part.
100%.
Being the guy who sits in an overnights in a car, doesn't talk to anybody, that's probably not the best either. I would suggest just be careful with what type of position you would take and where you're doing it, and make sure that it has interactions with the public. If you want some, and I'm going to throw something way out of left field. If you want good experience, amazing experience, and be more qualified than supervisors or anybody on the job that you're going to eventually get, I would say just volunteer for a suicide hotline.
Oh,
Do that. You will have more experience than anybody in that academy has ever had, ever. Like, period. Bar none. Like, you will become the quickest problem solver. If you sit on a suicide hotline, first of all, if you could do that type of work, stomach it, and second of all, if you actually get good at it, You will get tons of experience. You don't have to quit your job, and it'll be better than any security guard thing you ever do ever. And pick up some jiu-jitsu. Excellent. You're off to the races.
Absolutely. I didn't see that coming, but that's a great point. Absolutely. Because I'm thinking I'm going to answer, and it's going to be through the lens of like the admin or guys going through the applications. Yeah. So when you see security, it's cops kind of look down on security. They do. But they don't always. If you're young and you've only had one security job and you interview well, it doesn't really matter. So if you already have security on your resume, good on you. That's fine. I don't want to scare people away. That's okay. But I wouldn't go out of my way to do security thinking cops are going to look at that and go, oh, security guy. They're not going to do that, really.
They're going to be like buff. Yeah.
Right. They're going to they're going to have to know you a little bit more. And like you said, that was a great suggestion. I would be more into like being able to put on there that you did all these ride-alongs, or you volunteered for a community program or something like that. I think would be better. So don't go out of your way to do it. If I looked at a guy's resume and he'd worked in a pharmacy laboratory, I would like that. I would be like, all right, this guy's like, he's probably got some smarts, or what's he doing? That's interesting. Yep. So I would do that. And just to put an exclamation point on what you said about security being careful, in my academy class, we had a guy that almost couldn't even be a cop because he was security at a high-end, like at a higher-end bar, and working for a company that was one of these security companies that was like, can I carry pepper spray? Are you certified like on your part-time cop job? Yeah, you can carry it. They don't have no policies. It's just like but understand, you're on the hook. Like they're not saying they trained you in it. Can I carry my handcuffs? Yeah, only use them if it's like a real crazy thing. So this guy actually did that. He carried handcuffs.
Oh no.
He carried other stuff, and he got there was a fight. It was crazy. It was mayhem. He ended up cuffing somebody. He got charged for kidnapping.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and no one stood behind him. No one, the property owner, nobody was like, everybody was rescinding their authority given to him as an agent of the property.
I never told him he could use handcuffs.
Who is this guy? The company hired him. I don't know what he's doing. What? Handcuff something? It's ridiculous. I'd never do that. So on his record to this day, you run this kid. He's a cop now. But if you run him, there's a not guilty for kidnapping. Yeah. So,
I mean, that's going a little extreme, kidnapping. I would say, I forget what of course I'm blanking on the statute now in New York, but just that's crazy.
Yeah, it was like the worst case scenario, and I don't know all the details of the story or what else he did, if he removed her from there and brought her somewhere else. I don't know what he did, but you can get yourself into trouble quick if you don't have those nice coverages that the police have, all that good faith stuff.
Man, you can get well, now New York City has no more qualified immunity, which is a hot topic, and that's
Do they really?
Yeah, no more qualified immunity. Nope, zero.
Wow, that's
Dunzo. Yep,
that's crazy. I was going to do an episode on
Good luck, kid.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to say.
That's crazy. I was going to do an episode talking about that, because it's like I don't even understand why it's even a discussion, except that the media is hyped up that police are evil. FBI comes with stats all the time proving the opposite. We're doing a pretty damn good job of not killing people.
Thankfully, the new commissioner, like I said, she's great. I don't know of any stories, bad. I'm sure maybe there's some precinct level stuff that you can get into the weeds with, but I know it was a big thing maybe about a year and a half ago, something like that, where they got rid of it. And now in New York, if you're going to testify in court, they could bring up all of your unsubstantiated claims, any type of report that somebody made against you, even if it's unsubstantiated, completely nonsense, and they investigate it and it's like excluded. They could bring all that stuff up. They could bring your personal stuff up, everything. You're on the stand, you swear to it, they could bring up everything. Oh, remember when you were suspended in high school? Remember when you got a red light ticket? Remember when you got this?
Goodness.
Every single thing can be brought up there. Everything.
That's insane. I mean, it's not that big a deal for a judge because he'll know better, but jury trials and stuff like that, those things go into people's mind, whether you tell them to forget it or not. They don't.
Always, yeah.
Strike that from your mind. Oh, okay. I'll get right on that. The qualified immunity thing, it's like It's not immunity. There's a word in front of it, and the word is qualified. And it's awarded by the court after they look at the case.
Correct.
And everybody has it. All lawmakers, law enforcers.
Correct.
Why can't I sue the governor of my state for backing abortion? I could use science in a pretty good criminal case that you're killing people. You're allowing it. How many murders have you been a part of now? Yeah. Well, I can't do that because qualified immunity. But
100%.
It's like
New York City cops gone away. Does not exist.
Damn, man,
I am not very read up on this subject, so if something has changed 2 months ago and I'm not aware of it, then
right, little disclaimer.
But small disclaimer, I just read a headline.
Right.
Small disclaimer, but I know it was a big topic for a while.
Damn, and that applies to you? Because you're
No, to me it does not apply to
just
me.
NYPD.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder these guys don't care. They don't put their
I think they had a written test, and I heard that like only 86 people took it or something like that. Which, for the New York City Police Department, that is insane.
They got to feed the beast.
Only 80. My academy class in New York City was 1,900.
They probably have 86 people retire a day there.
Oh my God, they have pictures of people at New York City headquarters. They call it One Police Plaza, One PP, Pencil Palace, Puzzle Palace, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
They have pictures of people in line, like just swarms of people retiring, resignations, people with 5 years on quitting, getting their papers, being able to carry their gun with the Leosa law. As long as they hit 5 years, they're vested. They're like, peace, I'm out. See you later.
Yeah, and go somewhere else. Go to a community that appreciates them. Why not?
100%. People going to Texas, Florida, down south, going anywhere where they can still do law enforcement. People will take them. They're just like quitting. So many Facebook posts, guys that I used to work with, people are moving out, quitting. It's hard, man. It's the recruiting department of the New York City Police Department has a really tough job right now. They have to give that job away right now. Damn,
yeah, because they have all the different. New York City is like unique that it encompasses train cops and highway cops. Like everybody's in there, so it's like 30,000. It's like the size of the Coast Guard, right? It's huge.
They need bodies. They need people out on the street. They just need people. It's very bad.
Damn, and just couple that with just the normal stuff, like people that just are a city cop for a year and they're like, you know what? Not for me. I can't take it. Or 6 months even. Like, this isn't what I thought. I don't want to do this. Add that on top of it. Damn, man. That's too bad. Well, hey, Dan, I'm glad that you made the move. You got that big brain and you're using it. That's good.
I got the golden ticket. I did. Very blessed, very lucky. Listen, law enforcement work obviously is dangerous anywhere, but like, you can only do so much for so long in such a busy place that like you have to have an exit plan. Whether that is like go to another department that is going to be better and harder to get into, maybe you just got to wait, or do your time on patrol on the street, find a niche that you like within the department if you're very lucky enough to have it, get a spot that you like, create a side business, whatever you want to do. Like make sure you set yourself up. Like do not be one of those people unless you love patrol. And patrol is like what you want to do for 20 years and you're just like gung ho, then yes, by all means. But like make your own destiny. Like you could do, this law enforcement work. It's very, you can get creative with it for the most part, depending on the department that you work in. You can get creative with it. So just have a plan. Just please have a plan.
Yeah, don't do it to yourself. That's good advice, brother. Hey, Dan, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Where can the people, if they want to reach out, they want to know about Bump It Marketing or the fingerprinting business, where can they reach you?
So what they could do is they could just shoot me an email. I'll send over my personal email. I made a new one a few months ago just to I got to recycle emails sometimes. I get so much stuff. So it's going to be D Jurkowitsch. So D is in David, Jurkowitsch, T is in Tom, S, C is in Charlie, H.
It will be in the show notes.
Yeah, the show note. 92.
Yep.
At gmail.com. djurkowitsch92 at gmail.com. Believe it or not, somebody else did take djurkowitsch at gmail.com. So whatever Dan or David or whatever Jurkowitsch is out there that took my email, I will pay you to have it back, please. Yeah, djurkowitsch92@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, whatever you need. Police stuff or consulting or business stuff, whatever. I'm an open book. We don't charge anything. Always here to help people out. Always a pleasure being on the show. Obviously, it's the second time, and it was good catching up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was an absolute pleasure. Great interview. Appreciate it. I'm going to do the outro. Can you hang in the green room for a second?
We'll be good, man. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Daneil Jurowitsch. Great conversation. That was really interesting, learning all that stuff about what's going on down there in Long Island. I'm still not sure if that's the right way, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on, brother. Guys, you know what? Hey, I gotta do Patreon roll call. What am I doing? What is wrong with me? Gotta get the sergeants there. Shout out. Supporters of the show, I'm talking about George Tessier, Daniel from Motor Cop Chronicles, Elian Rogers, Andrew Horton, Trevor Daly, Rick McCormick, Scott Minkler, Parker Brower, the great Tammy Walsh, Sean Clifford, Braden Walker, Sasha McNabb, Corey Payne, Glenn Topping, the great Mike Wynn, Nathan Gowan, Jason Lau, Dylan Pyrozik, Sarah Pomeroy, Lauren Stimson, Alec Wazik, the great Brandon Hooker, Jake Pinito, John Shoemaker, James Rose, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, William James Long, Andy Biggs, Chris June, Andy Mihal, the great Gary Steiner, and Lane Campbell. Thank you guys for your continued support, keeping the lights on over here at the podcast. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to support the show and you really love it, Patreon's the place to do it. Link in the comments. Don't worry, though. If you can't afford it, it's not something you can do right now. I totally understand. This show will remain free. You'll keep getting the 4 a month and possibly the throwback episode I put up once in a while. So thank you guys for joining us, and I'll see you next time.